I really appreciate it. I guess it's a great joy to get a chance to be here with you on this conference to share some perspectives with you on leadership. And the best way for us to get started is bringing some energy to this session. All right, so what I would love to do in this moment is introduce you to what I call my high-performance breakdown, all right, for this breakout session, and it goes like this. I'm going to speak the words, 3 claps, and you will execute, as a group, 3 claps. Then I'm going to speak the words, give it to me, and you're going to speak the words, boom, shakalaka. All right? Got it? Let's give it a shot. This is the high-performance breakdown here for this breakout session. Bring a little bit of energy, get us started. 3 claps. Give it to me.
Boom, shakalaka.
That was sweet. 3 claps. Give it to me.
Boom, shakalaka.
Here we go. Here we go. A little bit of energy, right? Got some dopamine rolling. You know, we've got some excitement, and that's going to get us ready for this conversation together here about leadership and about management. So let me start with a couple questions. Stand up right now if you've made a commitment to becoming the best version of yourself as a leader. Stand up in this moment if you've made a commitment to the leadership development of others with your professional work. And everyone's already standing, right? So how about we just raise a hand? All right, raise a hand if you're serving others as and in leadership development space. All right, put your hands down. Raise your hand if you made a commitment upon graduation to military service. Raise your hand if you're serving right now in our armed forces. And raise a hand if you're a veteran and have served at some point. All right, now everyone just take a moment real quick. You can put your hands down, you can have a seat if you'd like. But just look around the room at the incredible leadership and managerial experience that we have together today. So, let's start with expectations. You know, I'm going to tell you right now in this moment what you can expect from me in the next few moments together. It's one of the most important things that we can do in any relationship, professional, personal, romantic. When we know what to expect, we can perform at an incredibly high level as we move through that conversation, that engagement, that relationship. So here's what's going to happen together with you this afternoon, the time that we have. Number 1, this is going to be a participatory experience. All right? You're going to get out of this what you put in. Number 2, I'm going to share with you some definitions that I've come into an understanding of for leadership, for management, and for high performance. I'm going to share my journey with you so you have some context on how my life has developed me since graduation from VMI in this particular space. We'll close out with me sharing some high-performing habits for high-performing leaders and some habits of high-performing managers. And my dream for you in this time that you have is that you leave here in some way informed and inspired to lead through the disruptive moments that you probably have in your life right now, but they're coming to you really quick. So, let's establish a foothold together in this conversation in high performance, and I'll tell you why. We come together at a conference like this to talk about leadership, to learn, right? But for me, I want to walk away from this experience with something practical so that I can perform in my work. Would you agree? Right? Only difference for me is that I just don't want to show up and perform. I want to perform at a high level. So high performance. That's what I'm chasing in my life, and I hope that's what you're chasing in your life. So let's start right here. Someone share with me how they would define in their own words high performance. Anyone?
I would say high performance is being an expert in the little things, so try to just be excellent at whatever you do. You may not achieve perfection, but doing all those little things right and being competent in your job.
3 claps. Give it to him.
Boom, shakalaka.
All right, one more time. 3 claps. Give it to him.
Boom, shakalaka.
Hey, I appreciate you stepping into this vulnerability in this moment of, hey, someone's asking you to make an impact. I'm just let it rip. All right? It's a breakout session. You don't want to hear me talk, I promise, the whole time. I certainly will. Anybody else? High performance. What does it mean to you? In your own words.
The ability to meet and exceed the expectations of your craft.
All right, say it one more time.
The ability to meet and exceed the expectations of your craft.
That just come to you?
Yes, sir.
Just came to you.
Yes, sir.
All right, see? You inspired this young man to step up and let it rip. Great. 3 claps for this guy right here. Give it to him.
Boom shakalaka.
All right. So here's my perspective on high performance. Right? Success and desired results above established norms over the long term. All right? Probably saw a little bit of that in your sharing. This is kind of how I've defined it. It includes target creation, that success and the desired result. It also includes a norm. We talk about norms as a behavioral norm. We talk about, you hear a hint of culture begin to come in. So if my task is to sell $300,000 in software, and I do that in violation of my honesty, I'm keeping it really simple, right? It's more complicated than this, and I violated a norm that my team has established, although I've met a performance goal, have I met my definition for high performance? No, because behavior, culture is as important as the results that we establish for ourselves. And looking at the survey that we did this morning, majority of the folks in the room would agree that culture is even more important in some cases to building that high-performing team as compared to the result. So let's just park this to the side, right? Because I want us to just have this in the back of our mind when we continue in this conversation that, yeah, we're going to talk about leadership and management, but we want to be a man and a woman in action practically to perform at a high level. All right, leadership. How is it defined? I know VMI takes an incredible deliberate approach to leadership development, so much so that they have the VMI Leader Journey. So, we've only heard VMI represent so far in this breakout session. So let's go to someone else other than VMI. How would you define leadership? Because here, check it out. In the 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock opener, Colonel Gray stepped up, and I bet you I think I counted the use of leader or leadership at least 6 times. But it wasn't defined for us. We defined disruption. I think we throw the word leader and leadership around all the time, and there's some confusion around how it's defined. So let's get some alignment here in this moment. What does it mean to lead, or the word leadership to you? Someone share. All right?
The ability to effectively influence others in the completion of tasks.
That's on point. Where's the VMI leadership development team? I just looked at the definition once today. I think that pretty much knocks it out of the park. Hey, Dave, is he right on that?
He's correct.
Right. Wonderful. Anybody else? A perspective on leadership? All right. Mine's a little bit shorter, but we have some great alignment here, okay? Leadership is simply influence, right? It has absolutely nothing to do with title or position. It's, to take it even a step further, high-performing leadership, in my opinion, is effective positive influence. A little bit kind of towards what you were hinting on with your definition, right? Because we can certainly be a negative influence as a leader, but what we want to perform at a high level is that effective positive influence in that moment. And I think when we can adopt a definition like this, that leadership is simply just influence, I know for me, I become incredibly inspired. I become unconstrained because I don't have any sort of, framework that I expect to operate in. So much so in my career, I always thought leadership was, I've got to be in charge of something or someone. And so there's a huge growth for me to where I'm at now from where I started. So I'm super proud of you and everybody else that would agree leadership is influence at such a young age, because your ability to make an impact on others is going to be significantly different than my experience was. So if we can accept for a moment that leadership is influence and high-performing leadership is effective positive influence, how then would we define management? What does it mean to manage? I'd love to go back to you, but I want to get somebody else involved here. Yes, sir.
Organizing and overseeing, but not setting the agenda.
Okay. Like it. Anybody else? Management. What does it mean to manage? I I would bet some significant money that everyone in here today is managing someone, or you're being managed. Or upon graduation, we'll come right back to you, upon graduation, you're going to manage or be managed by someone. So we better have an understanding of what it means to manage.
Sir, I would say management is more just organizing the day-to-day tasks, not looking at the big picture.
All right. Great perspective. Thanks for sharing that out. So for me, here's a definition for management. It hits on a lot of the stuff you guys talked about already. It's the supervision of people and or projects in order to accomplish tasks, missions, and assignments. That's management for me. And you can see how it's differentiated significantly from leadership. And I'll take it a step further, again, going back to this desire to be a high-performing manager. That's my dream for you. That's what I want you to be. That's probably your dream for yourself. How can I become a high-performing manager? Well, that leadership has to be a part of the way you execute. So not only am I required and charged with supervising people and projects, but I also am that effective positive influence. And so you may be thinking to yourself right now, okay, Court, I can get down with that. I understand high-performing managers are folks that do this, that are also an effective positive influence on others. And to that end, I am that manager today. In whatever capacity you're involved, as a corps of cadets somewhere across this great country, as someone charged for the leadership development of others, or maybe just for yourself. Or you may say, you know what, I'm not sure. I'm not sure as I step into management that I'm that effective positive influence. Well, stick with me, because I'm going to share with you some habits of high-performing leadership and some habits of high-performing management as we move forward. But before I do, what I do want to do in this moment is share with you my journey, okay? My journey through disruption. And it's going to be tough to capture the past 20-plus years, so I'm going to hit it at a very high level for you because I think it's important to grab some context of how my life has developed since graduation. So bottom line up front, when I graduated, I commissioned into the Army as a Medical Service Corps officer. And Dave, if you don't mind handing out those things, that'd be great. I've got a handout for you here so you don't are overly focused on taking notes. There's some stuff here for you. I wanted to be an Army surgeon, and so I commissioned in the Medical Service Corps with the Army, and then very rapidly, like most of our lives develop, I was met with a disruptive event. And that disruptive event came at the 82nd Airborne Division on September 11th, 2001, when I was huddled up in the dining facility with a bunch of combat medics. I was a platoon leader at the time, and the footage of the terrorist attacks on this great country began to flood into any TV screen that was present. And in that moment for me, it was an emotional response that I had. So I began to think in my mind, you know, am I doing as much as I can to help this great nation as a soldier in the Army? And I came up with the conclusion that no, I wasn't. And that kind of my dreams to go be a surgeon, I had to put on pause for a moment. I had to figure out how could I make a greater contribution to the defense of this country. And I decided to assess with Special Forces. And I got selected. I earned my Green Beret. And I began to operate in this particular domain, which was very different than being in medicine. So let's fast forward a little bit. You know, I think in the introduction we talked about 2 tours in South America. What did I do specific in South America? That's all foreign internal defense. It's training a foreign Colombian army. It's doing some collateral activities for SEAL Team 6 and the Delta Forces. There was American hostages held by the FARC in that country at the time that I served. 4 rotations into Afghanistan, 2 into Iraq. This is my team and one of my rotations into Afghanistan. And the next significant kind of disruptive event that I had to deal with, that I'm most memorable of experiencing, was when, after a combat mission, my team sergeant, his name is Jerry Patton, this is Jerry right up here, 75th Ranger Regiment, incredibly skilled and highly trained man, came to me and said, hey, Court, have you ever considered kind of taking your service to the next level in Army Special Operations and service with the Delta Force? And I said, no, Jerry, to be honest, I haven't. I said, why do you ask? He said, because I got to tell you, man, I see the managerial and leadership competencies in you that's kind of destined for greatness. And I have some guys I've served with before that they're in that unit right now, and I see you doing that. And that struck me because I don't know that I saw that in myself in that moment, but somebody else did. And so Jerry lit a fire in me, and I sought out and I applied to go work with the Delta Force. And just for context, there's about 450,000 soldiers in the Army when I served, and the Delta Force will pursue about 50 folks every year to invite out to go through their kind of screening process. And I got picked. I got picked to go do that, but I didn't make it. I didn't make it through their process. And I was met with failure for the first time in my adult professional life. And I thought about this a lot, even as I'm preparing for these comments for you. I don't think that I'm anyone incredibly special, but I don't know that I had disruptive failure. I did well at VMI. My commission, my first choice was Medical Service Corps. I was a great platoon leader. I had tons of fun. But then I finally got to a point where someone said, what you want to do, not happening. And my life began to be incredibly uncertain in that moment because, you see, the Army's kind of interesting. And when I made a decision to leave these guys, I don't know if these guys wanted me back. I can tell you for sure they didn't want me back because when I came back, I got orders to leave my operational group and go to the training house, which is, unfortunately, the Army is not like the Marines. The Marines do a good job with this, and they put their most talented folks in the training school. In my experience, most of the folks that were in the Army said, hey, I just want to stay in the fight. I don't want to train the future leaders. And so I had to figure out what was next. And so what do you do when you're told no? I don't know what you do. What I did is try again, right? You try again. You don't let no be an answer. So I reapplied. I got into the Delta Force, and I served there for 6 years. Retired in 2016. And in that moment, I had to walk away for the first time from what I've done for the past 22 years, which is military. It's all I knew. And I began to explore in my mind, in this moment of uncertainty, in this moment of ambiguity, what can I now do with my life? And I began to understand and uncover the word fulfillment and define that for my life. And what I walked away with was that for me, it was anything in the health, wellness, or sports-related field. And so I pursued a company in the sports industry called Teamworks. Teamworks Innovations Incorporated. They're a startup company in Durham, North Carolina. And this company sells software to athletic departments, the Arizona Cardinals, the Dallas Cowboys, the Green Bay Packers. And I got invited to come in and interview. The company owner, which will blow you away, 31-year-old guy right there. His name's Zach Maritas. I was in my 40s, and I show up. And at the end of this process, Zach says to me, hey, Court, this is a startup, man. You'd be the 41st hire for us. You played college football. You performed at a high level in your life in the military. But I tell you what, man, I don't really know what you can do for me. But I know I want you on my team. And so I told Zach, I said, well, what's your greatest need, Zach? And he said, selling my software. I said, put me in, coach. All right? I said, put me in. Right? Having never sold a single thing in my life except mission concepts to commanders. Right? I stepped into a startup company with a 41st hire that didn't even have a human resources department. Right? And I'll tell you why I did that. I stepped into that mostly because I believed in this person right here. He had vision. He had a mission. And he was incredibly inspired to deliver in that for others. Now, let's fast forward. 7 months later, me and Zach, the company owner, 41 people, all in Durham, North Carolina, coming in every day together and working. We continue to talk about 3 things that kept him up at night. How do I mitigate burnout? How do I sustain high performance over the long term? And how do I build incredible office culture? So much so that Zach came to me and said, Court, stop selling software for me. You see, I'm going to raise another round of external venture capitalist money, millions of dollars. We're going to grow this company from 41 people to 100 plus. We're going to become the Google of the sports space when it comes to software. I want to build the culture, the performance metrics, and help the fulfillment of the employees that are serving here on a foundation that you create. So he asked me to be a leadership coach for his company, having never been a leadership coach in my life, right? And so that's kind of been the story that's led me to today in the work that I do. Now, I share this story very deliberately, and here's why. Not because of all the stuff I just went through, right? Because we all have a story. We all have a different path to high performance, and only if we're willing to step into that and share that, we can make an impact on the lives of others. But I share this because I'm curious, as you listened, did you identify any themes in me and my story that you might have remembered? Did you recognize maybe or identify any behaviors in me? Maybe you said, hey, this guy, he's brave. Yes, sir.
I would say the same, theme that I recognize is that you're always looking out for others. You're always trying to see what you can do for others, not what they can do for you.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that, right? Kind of a servant kind of approach to things, and I would agree with you. That's certainly how I was developing throughout my journey, right? But what I came to understand is that I had to reflect on these things if I wanted to perform at a high level. And I understood that a few things began to emerge from me in addition to that, right? Bravery, perseverance. I'm a learner. I want to compete at a very high level. I want to be among the very best in my field. But what I can tell you is I didn't know these things as I went through the experience. As the developmental journey occurred, I wasn't mindful of this stuff. It's only in reflection do I see these things. And when I see the fact that I have core values that significantly impact my decision making, and I'm able to identify those, and they are for me, I'm brave, I'm honest, I'm spiritual, I'm incredibly gritty, and I'm humble. And those are my signature core values that impact my decision making. And it goes way back to 8 years old when I was paralyzed in the hospital for 46 days and almost died, and extends to where I am today. And, oh, by the way, I have certain strengths that my experience has developed in me throughout my journey. Strengths like I'm a relator. I want to know people on a very deep level. And I can step into vulnerability quickly so I can really understand what's going on in their life so we can figure out how to move forward. I'm a learner. I'm a high achiever. I'm incredibly competitive. I'm very deliberate in my approach. And those are my top 5 signature strengths. And what happens is when we understand what we value, when we understand what we're good at, 3 things for me occur. I have clarity, confidence, and focus. And it's clarity and confidence and focus that have helped move me through disruptive moments in my life. So, this is my first challenge for you here today in this breakout session. I encourage you, as you leave this conference this afternoon, you go back to barracks, you go back to a hotel, maybe you go back to your home, identify the top 3 to 5 core values that significantly impact your decision making, and identify the top 3 to 5 strengths within yourself. And allow you to not only just write those words down, but define what they mean to you in practice in your life. And allow that to inform your future decision making so that you can have clarity, confidence, and focus in those moments of disruption. Again, I believe that I drew upon that when I reflect on my own story, but I certainly didn't know it when I was sitting at VMI. Now, let's move in this moment to a small, more tactical, practical place as I wrap up my comments and then open this up for some discussion. So I want to share with you some high-performance habits of a high-performing leader that will help move you through times of disruption. And the first one is high-performing leaders create impact by leveraging self-awareness explosions. And how do you do this? I already talked about the first 2, right? You understand who and what your identity is, which is grounded in core values. You have an awareness of what you're good at, and you use those core values to help you assess cultural alignment with the organizations that you might serve with. You allow those core values to help drive culture in the places that, if you're pursuing military service upon graduation, you'll be responsible for doing. And you allow your strengths to help inform what you may do and what you may reject from a professional place. High-performing leaders create impact by understanding what motivates them, what stresses them, and they have a deep understanding of their own individual personality. Now, there's a ton of personality tests that are out there. I'm certified in the My Everything DISC. That's just one of many. There's a bunch out there. But when you know your personality at a deep level, it allows you to do really two things. Number one, you can explain it to other people. Don't allow your team to figure it out over 3 to 6 months. Why not just self-disclose? Hey, here's what motivates me, boss. Hey, here's what really stresses me out, boss. And here's what you can expect from me in the workplace as a member of this team, from a personality place. More importantly, when you study your own personality, you're going to be exposed to other personalities that aren't yours. And the key to effective positive influence is understanding what this young man needs in order for me to be an effective influence in his life. For a long time in my career, I kind of thought it was, well, kind of do what I say. That doesn't work too well. It works real well for privates, but doesn't work real well as you mature and get older. High-performing leaders create impact by having an understanding of their emotions. They're able to exercise impulse control or emotional expression consistently over time. And that results in you being predictable. And predictability is really important if you want to be someone who's influencing others. And then finally, they seek feedback. And not only do you just receive that feedback, because it's one thing to ask and yet it feels good, but it's to shift our behavior is really where the secret is. The second thing high-performing leaders do is they maximize their engagement with others. And there's a real simple way to do this. We're talking about creating a deliberate presence. And if you haven't been exposed to meditation yet, I encourage you to do that. There's a ton of apps out there that help with meditation. I use Headspace. There's Insight Timer. There's Calm. Because presence is just meditation in motion. It's taking that into the daily conversations you have with others, one-on-one, over a web meeting, over the phone, and it results in you just presenting as someone that's very centered and allows you to connect well with others. So I'd encourage you to do that. The third thing, high-performing leaders understand their own individual fulfillment. And fulfillment, once we know what it is, it results in an infectious passion when we find ourselves in collaboration with others. And fulfillment, science will tell us, really comes from 4, but I'll talk about 3 particular areas. Number 1, how confident are you in what it is you're being asked to do? Number 2, how committed are you to growing? What goals are you setting for yourself? And number 3, how is the community in which you're serving? Are you deliberate in those interpersonal relationships? If you're doing those 3 things, you're going to be a man or a woman that's incredibly fulfilled in the work that you're doing. And that's going to allow you to just be a joy to be around when you're collaborating with others. And number 4 here, high-performing leaders activate resilience. It's the optimism, and that's a decision you make. When you got to do all the stuff you don't want to do, how can you find something good in there and focus on that? Do you have a gratitude practice? For me, every morning, a cup of coffee, maybe a run, some meditation, then I'm writing down 3 things that I'm grateful for. Because if I don't, I know the day's coming, and there's going to be moments where I get really disappointed, upset, or rejected. But if I start and I set my mind to focus on the good, because we all have it, it might just be a cup of coffee. It might be just somewhere to sleep. But if we focus on what's good, we can be very resilient and drive through setback. Believing in something greater than yourself is incredibly powerful. And for me, it's my relationship in Christ and the fact that no matter how unloved I feel, I'm loved. No matter how disappointed or rejected I am from a professional place, there's a greater purpose that I'm serving. And for you, it might not be God, and that's fine. But I got to believe there's something you believe in. Environmentalism, diversity, inclusion. Maybe you just want to be incredibly financially successful. But that's going to propel you through those moments when you get disrupted and allow you to be resilient. And then just being gritty. When an obstacle comes, find a way around, through, under, over, but don't let those small obstacles stop you from continuing to move. So, those are 4 habits I'd love to share with you on high-performing leaders. I want to talk real briefly on high-performing habits of managers as they move through disruption. The first one is high-performing managers are great communicators that inspire action. It comes from that vision and mission. It results in being really great at the spoken word and the written word, because so much of what we're doing today does come through us in writing. It's a nonverbal presence. It's actively listening. And that was hard for me to do for a long time. Being open to those learning opportunities and praising others in a way in which they need to be. Maybe don't call them up in front of the group if that's not what they want. Maybe it's an intimate conversation in the hall. But understanding who it is that you're serving in communication to deliver impact. Number 2, they develop the team by understanding their teammates and what they need to feel fulfilled in their life at a very deep level. And this is a mouthful to say, but it's probably the most simplest one to do. It's simply just asking someone, hey, Jamal, what do you want the power to do as a member of this team? Hey, Jennifer, what do you need from me to feel valued? Those are really important questions to ask. It demonstrates care, and it builds trust. And the 4 most important competencies to have within a relationship for building trust that I would argue and introduce to you today is you got to be caring, you got to be reliable, you got to be sincere, and you got to be confident in the work that you do. And I challenge you to look at any relationship that you have in your life that you can't attribute to a degradation to care, reliability, sincerity, or competence if it in fact broke down. The final thing here, managers have a bias for action. They just are folks that want to get stuff done. They're not comfortable with the status quo. They're innovative in their approach. They want to finish first, and they want the teams that they're a part of to finish first. So, a couple things I hope you take with you. We talked about high performance, success and desired results above established norms. I shared some definitions for leadership and management. And I introduced a couple habits that I've discovered in my life that's helped me move through disruption as a high-performing leader, and shared some habits with you that I've come to understand for high-performing managers. So, given that backdrop, given that conversation, what other questions can I answer for you, or can we talk through together in this moment? Anything resonate for you? Yes, sir.
Sir, so you served in the military and then went into the civilian world.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, you're going to be doing management in both. How well did that transfer over from the military? Because you're kind of almost more from an authoritative standpoint where, you said, it works for your privates, they have to listen to you. But then going into the civilian world, you have to be able to inspire to get that influence.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say my comment on the fact that, you had this hierarchy and people are supposed to follow orders from the Army, it does only really get you so far. Clearly, there's a uniform code of military justice. You can force people to do things, but that's never the best approach. So my answer to your question would be a lot of the same leadership competencies for effective positive influence that I developed in the Army transitioned pretty rapidly into the civilian world. And a lot of the ones that I shared with you on that screen. I think the most important one is just developing an open communication and letting people know that you're working with, that you care about them. I think second to that, it's establishing, what success looks like, specifically from a manager. Meaning, hey, within the first 3 days of you taking command or control of a team, civilian, military, doesn't matter, but you happen to be the manager in charge, you need to sit down and tell the folks that work for you, hey, this is what success looks like for you in this role. From a performance metric-based place and from a behavioral place. Because I talked about it before kind of in my definition. There's core values that are expected to be prescribed to within this team. There's just a way that we do things, and there's what we do, and they're both important. And if you don't have that conversation up front, early, a lot of people talk about difficult conversations or crucial conversations. It becomes very difficult to step into those conversations once someone is doing things from a behavior place inconsistent with what you expect and not performing to standard. So those are probably the 2 things that I was gifted from the military that transferred most for me post-military. Care, right? And then establish what success looks like and hold folks accountable, yourself included. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Anybody else want to comment on this? A lot of people in here have managed before. Anyone else? Any other questions? Yes.
Sir, how did you manage burnouts in yourself and in those that worked for you?
That's a great question. So I would say that the first thing is have a self-care practice. And what do I mean by that? It's sleep. You know, get enough sleep. And I would argue, I'm not a sports scientist, but I had a lot of folks that worked with me on sleep. I'd say 8 hours at a minimum, right? And you know, I know General Votel is coming out here this afternoon or tomorrow, and I actually worked for him at a point in my career. And he might say, hey, I got 5 hours of sleep, and I'm good. There are some folks that are just incredible, and God has given them an incredible gift, but there's a certain amount of sleep that you need to perform at a high level, so it starts there, right? Movement. And I think for a lot of people, maybe not in this population, but exercise is a curse word, right? And so movement is kind of more of a PC way to approach it, but you got to move your body because, you know, pick up a book called Spark, okay? And it's going to tell you from a science place your ability to perform and mitigate burnout, which is really stress and strain. If you have and take care of your body, it's going to allow you to drive through that better than if not. And then there's nutrition, right? That's really important. So have a way to take care of yourself is the most important thing you can do for burnout. Second thing, you got to learn how to say no, okay? And that was a really challenge for me because especially when you work in an environment where a lot is asked and you want to deliver, it's really difficult to say no. And so I offer this up. Say yes, but not now. When people come to you with things they want you to do, because that allows you to take control. And when you say yes, but not now, you're actually saying no. And you're allowing to take on that task in your own time. And when conditions are most favorable for you to get it done. So those are two things that have helped me mitigate burnout. The first one's actually kind of easier. The second one's a little more difficult. Helpful? All right. Yes, sir.
Got a question about, I'm a mid-level manager in the Department of Defense. Can you talk a little bit about leading leaders? And it's one thing to be a frontline leader. I've been there, didn't do it that great maybe. But how to impart those messages to people about things that you see them doing that are probably pitfalls that you've stepped into, but also how to make them or lead them to the point where they need to think about all the things that you're talking about, how to define things for themselves and understand those things, and do that while balancing all those tasks that they have to manage for their folks as well.
Yeah, so really big question.
I'm sorry.
Can you break it down within that? What's the most important aspect of that you'd like me to address? Is it what specifically?
I would say the leading leaders piece to get them to take their leadership role seriously.
Sure. Great question. All right, and again, I hear the words that you use, and there's a little inconsistency for me in how I view things. So when you say leading leaders, I would say, how do you influence influencers, right? And so maybe we're just talking about are these direct reports or are these peers? Some of that stuff matters.
They're direct.
Okay, so how can you most effectively influence direct reports that are not performing, that are not?
No, they're performing. It's the embracing their leadership role versus their management.
Yeah, and so, and you're in the Department of Defense construct?
Yes, sir.
That's probably the problem. So and I think it's crazy, and right, like I've managed federal GS employees, and so I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but I understand the predicament. I'd say in some cases, this goes back to something I think that's really, really important if you're responsible for building a team and hiring people. You got to hire slow, meaning you have to take a very deliberate approach. You've got to really deeply understand, hey, what does this person value, and is it aligned with me? So if they're just going to come in and clock in, clock out, and kind of do the minimum, you got to know you're going to get that. Me, I'm not hiring that person. So how do I make a good informed decision in that process? So I think it starts there. The second thing is you got to fire fast, right? Which I understand is difficult within the Department of Defense, but it's not impossible. I've done it. You just got to work really hard. You got to begin to document. It goes back to the answer earlier here. What does success look like for you in this role as a member of my team. And oh, by the way, I'm expecting you to do these things. And you've got to identify for yourself what those things are so that your organization can, in your opinion, your team, perform at a high level. That's your burden of responsibility, and you've got to own that. And so if there's someone that's not bringing their A game, which for me it's like, I'm going to go take down this target, and my criticism would be, Court, I'm not taking down anything. Tell me what you mean, right? So when you're saying they're not doing what you need them to do, you've got to establish that success criteria, and you've got to hold them accountable to it and help coach them to do it, or make the decision that it's just not going to work. I got to figure out a performance improvement plan and how to off-ramp that and get someone else in there that's more consistent with the direction that you're going. I don't know if I've really helped you in your question, because I'm thinking you're looking for some tactical things. But I would really say the most important part is just regular frequency of engagement on what success looks like. And if they're not doing it, got to have a really difficult conversation about them not being on the team anymore. It moves really fast in the civilian world. You can fire people like that. In the DoD, it's a little tough. So you may want to consider a change with your career if that's what you want, because there's a culture within that too. And I say that loving the Department of Defense, right? It's been a joy to my life that continues to give back to me. But I'm aware of kind of some of the constraints. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Sir, how do you stop complacency within an organization or within yourself, especially in organizations where success is often redefined? So you may meet a certain level of success, but then you're redefining it, stepping up to that next higher level.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of the same of what I just shared. I mean, I don't. First of all, if anyone can tell me how to make anyone do anything, we're going to make a lot of money. And let's talk afterwards. Because that's human behavior 101, right? They've got to want to do it. And complacency, I would just say, well, what do you mean? Let's and I'm going to dig in a little bit because these things matter. When I define complacency, it's kind of like a lack of action. And that in and of itself is really hard to coach around. So what do you want them to do? What does success look like for you on not being complacent? And if it is, well, it's doing this action, we'll define the action, tell them what success looks like, and then hold them accountable in achievement of that. But it's really hard just to work with a generalized term like, oh, well, they're complacent. Because I would challenge the manager. That's where the problem is in that moment. They've not done a good job of defining what success looks like for that person.
So on that, sir, if you're often redefining what success is, though, can you end up maybe not burning yourself out, but burning out others if they're continually meeting a goal of success, but it's almost subvertently telling them it's not enough? Where if you continually redefine what success is, like you've met this peg point, but now we need to be more successful, and we need to be more successful.
Yeah, I mean,
do you run into that roadblock?
I've been there. That's a startup technology company, right? We don't even know. There's not even a performance management system. I think in that particular case, you got to be incredibly transparent on what the person's getting involved with. You know, and if you're, this goes to personality a little bit, if you're a steady personality and you want to know process, you probably want to run away from a startup, because I'm going to tell you what it looks like every week because I'm just figuring it out. So I think it's some awareness in that moment of kind of what the mission and vision of that organization is, and some acceptance on, if you want to continue to serve within this team, this is just the way it's going to be for a little bit. And allowing that person to make a decision. And if they're like, well, I don't know that I can do a good job given the fact that you're changing what success looks like for me every 2 weeks, because I'll tell you, that is hard. But sometimes you have to be that agile. And so I'd say, don't give up. Continue to have those conversations, and allow that person, if an exit is the best thing for them to do, help them. It's one of the greatest things you can do for someone, is help move them into a different direction if that's what they want to do. We'll hit you next, okay?
Sir, can you speak briefly about how to apply or how you apply these core habits of leaders and managers in
Yeah, it's a monster question for me. I don't know that I'll do a good job for you right now in this moment because it's a big question. I guess I can reflect on, being in an RPG ambush, right in Afghanistan, when teams channelized, restricted by terrain, and what you do is you just go back to how you trained, and it becomes muscle memory. I don't know that I talked about that specifically in some of the habits that I shared, but I think maybe there's some resiliency there on just once an obstacle's met, how do you move through it, leading back into just the way you were trained. I think it's too big of a question for me to kind of address in this moment. I certainly want to answer it for you. Maybe we can connect afterwards. That work? Yeah. Any other questions? You had one back there. Do you still have it? I don't want to force you.
Yes, I do. My first question is, have you always meditated, specifically when you served in the military?
Absolutely not.
Well, like if you could reflect on it and say like maybe how it would have helped you. And then my second question is, how do you make goals for yourself, and then how do you successfully accomplish or pursue those goals?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, I wish I meditated when I was in the military. I did not. I wasn't even really exposed to it. I would say that the closest place I came to meditation in the military was prayer. And for me, it's a very similar experience. Meditation came to me after the Army, when I really stepped into this space of how do we perform at a really high level. And there's a lot of science. There's a great book out there. It's on your handout. It's called Start Here, Mastering a Lifelong Habit of Well-Being. The first practice that book teaches is to meditate. For me, guided meditation is my meditation of choice. And if you've never meditated, I don't recommend. You say, I'm going to spend 30 minutes and meditate. You will fail, right? Start out really small. So this kind of transitions well into goals. I would recommend 3 minutes maybe to get started with meditation. And it's got to be a daily religious habit to be most effective, in my opinion, and at a time where you can build it and put it upon another existing habit that you have. So for me in my life, I got 2 kids, a 9 and a 10-year-old. They got to get up, got to get out to school. Once they're out of the house, that's the time for me to sit down and meditate. So you got to introduce it as a habit to your life. So we can talk more about that if you want. But I think it would have helped me a lot doing it because there's a lot of science behind it when I was in the military. But I just really can't talk about it because I would just be speculating, having not done it then. Your second question was about goal setting.
Yes, like how do you set your goals? Like some people set like a 3 goals for
Yeah.
half a year. So how do you set your goals and then pursue them?
Yeah, I would say my approach is I look at an annual goal and I break them out as professional and I break them out as personal. So there's those 2 domains to it. And they've got to be SMART. And I'm guessing this isn't a brand new nugget that I'm introducing to you here, but maybe it is. SMART's an acronym. They got to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. One of the most important things about goal setting is it's got to be measured. You've got to have a way to grade out your performance. And that means it has to have a certain amount of specificity. And then it has to be bound by time. Because if it's not bound by time, then you kind of let yourself off the hook all the time. Well, I didn't accomplish that goal. And it's okay not to accomplish goals because then you just iterate and maybe you change it. Maybe that's the best thing that you do. So that would be my advice in this moment in and around goal setting. Answer your question? Okay. Dave, I think we're at time.
We get one more round of applause for Court. Thank you all very much for attending. You have about 15 minutes to get to your next post. So refreshments are out there, restrooms, everything else. And if you need directions, we have people in the lobby that'll help you. Thank you.